I remember this one guy, he just stopped me. He's like, Jason, I just want to tell you, you were one of the first people that you made a connection with me. And you welcomed me, you shook my hand, you showed me where I needed to go. You made it easy to come to church. And that was reassurance, not a pat on my back, but it's just like, but that's what we need.
Welcome to another edition of Maverick University. I'm your host, David Hallberg. Joining me today is Brother Jason Krykewycz. Brother Krykewycz is the assistant pastor at Solid Rock Baptist Church in Berlin, New Jersey, and it's a pleasure to have him here with us. We're in the midst of our Old Paths Conference, and you're doing some preaching for us this week, and we appreciate you preaching, coming in and doing that, but we also appreciate you coming in to sit down with us today. We just got one shot with you, one episode, and we're just going to be talking about something that you've done specifically at Solid Rock, dealing with visitors and how to help them make that gap from being a visitor to actually getting in a Sunday school class. But before we do that, just give a little bit of your background. You grew up at Solid Rock Baptist Church.
That's correct.
Okay, and then through your teen years, you graduated high school from their Christian school, I imagine.
Yes, sir.
And then you came out here to Elgin for Bible College back in the year 2000, graduated in 2004, met your wife here, and then you traveled back to the East Coast where you spent 9 years as assistant pastor in Connecticut.
Correct.
And now you're 8 years back at your home church. And
Yes,
so
sir.
It must be good to be home again.
It is. It's been a blessing.
So talk to me about the genesis of this ministry that you guys have, where you're taking a first-time visitor coming in the door for the first time and making sure that they have contact through the whole time and they can be successfully transitioned into a Sunday school class.
Our pastor was burdened, now that he's becoming more of an official role as the pastor of the church, Brother Charlie. His burden is to make sure nobody falls through the cracks. Pastor Clark has always been a down-to-earth person, just take off the tie, sit down, have coffee and tea with you. Relationships, calls people, talks to people all day. Brother Charlie is a busy man, and he's like, we cannot, let that drop. And with Pastor Clark getting older and doing less in the ministry, he just was passionate about that. So that's kind of where this First Impressions team, building a team of people that can look for visitors, looking for people that are coming into our ministry, and having a group of people that will grip up on them, engage them, welcome them, bring them in, and then assist in getting them connected to our adult Bible classes.
Yeah, I think there's nothing more frustrating for a pastor to work and have your soul winners work, to knock however many doors, meet so many people, invite so many people to church, and finally somebody does, and you don't even handle that right when all that work is behind all that.
Yeah. And he sees them all, and he's like, from the pulpit, visitor, I don't know their name, but he can't touch every person.
Sure.
So he needs that team, and that's kind of where it's been born.
Okay, so obviously everybody gets accustomed to their own church. They get comfortable. You know everyone, and it takes a special time to do a little introspection, take a step back and think about, okay, well, what if I was the new guy?
Right.
What were some of the things and some of the areas that you discovered you needed to bolster when you did that take a step back look?
One of the things as our ministry has grown, you start plugging people in. And everybody's busy in your church. Like you get a lot of people who want to serve. They're in a ministry, whether it's BOSS, whether it's Sunday school, whatever it is. And I think one of our biggest weaknesses was, people are serving and they're in the ministry and they're dealing with the people that are in their class. But then you get that visitor who pops in, they walk in and they walk out. And you have greeters, you have people at the doors and stuff like that. But we wanted to go that next level up to say, no, we're actually engaging them. And to where we're going to grab them, they were easily identifiable as the help. We're there. We're just not somebody at a door, but really grabbing them and bringing them along. And so as we've developed our ministry, like I said, you get stretched out, and even the staff, like they're not in the lobby. The staff are running this and that during the ministry or during the service, but who's the people that are connecting with the visitors? And that's where we're trying to say, all right, we got to get this team and have people structurally in place on a rotation, whatever it is, to get them in place to meet and greet the visitors.
There's no busier time in a church than on Sunday morning.
Correct.
Everybody's busy. They're doing something. They have a task that they're trying to accomplish for someone and for people. But then you just simply skip over people
Right.
to help people.
Yes. Yes.
And I think you're right. I mean, you almost need a designated team of people
Right.
who don't do anything else.
Right.
You don't touch them. They're the untouchables. Don't ask them to serve in another
Yes.
ministry.
Right.
Their ministry is to do nothing but be a friend
Correct.
to visitors.
And connect, yeah.
And so, you talked about greeters. A greeter is not enough.
Right.
Because a greeter will say, hello, have
Yeah.
a bulletin,
Yes.
have a good day.
Correct.
But you want to do more than
Yeah.
that. And so talk to me about the job description. What are some things that you teach your first impressions team to do?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're going to be recruiting people who are naturally charismatic
Right.
themselves,
Right.
which is something not necessarily you can teach, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be. But
Right.
what are some things that you're trying to teach them to do? What are some things you're teaching to avoid?
So I'll explain the team. The first layer, we want to make sure that we have a good impression as soon as they come on our property.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they're not working on a Sunday morning, the grounds are everything.
Okay.
Our pastor will drive in the in the morning. He'll be there 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Trash will be on the front yard. He'll stop, walk out, and pick it up. So the idea of first impression starts as soon as you come on our property. So yes, the grounds, the parking lot attendants, people who are waving them around, the signage, you want to make sure that it's clear and it's easy. So that's some of the stuff that you don't see actually people working on in the morning, but it's part of the team.
Sure.
Making sure the building's clean and all that stuff. So that's part of, it's that general first impression. But when a person actually parks, we'll have our parking lot attendants that are there pointing them along. And we've talked about having designated parking spaces, and sometimes you don't have the space to allot for,
Sure.
hey, these are all the visitors or whatever. But we've talked about having that initial spot for visitor parking. But our first contact point is those greeters.
Mm-hmm.
And those greeters are critical because they're the ones that are greeting everybody and making sure everybody's feeling welcome. I mean, I remember there was a lady in our church that, she would come in and she was probably a little bit more than the average person, and she was looking to be babied and pampered. But she walked away, and here's her statement that she made to my wife. She's like, I broke my leg and nobody reached out to me. And that was like a knife in my heart, just the idea of, man, did we not know she broke her leg? Are we supposed to be investigating? But I'm like, did we even know that she was missing?
Yeah.
And adult Bible classes, but she wasn't plugged in adult Bible class.
Okay.
And that happens where people come to church. So the idea of ministering to the people who are in the auditorium that don't connect to these classes and these other small groups you might have in your church. And that's kind of where First Impressions is built, because your greeters to welcome. We have the next stage is your guides. And the guides are critical because they're the ones that are in the lobby. And they're the ones that they're watching and specifically looking for unfamiliar faces. Now, if you get a brand new person doing a guiding, they're not going to know every name in the church.
Sure.
So they're approaching. So I'm teaching them, it's like, hey, I tell them, it's like, my go-to line is, hey, how long you been coming? And
Okay.
I don't ask them, is this your first time? Because I might be embarrassed by that question. But I'm like, how long you been coming? And then they say, I've been coming, this is my first time. Or I've been here for 2 years. It's like, really, I haven't met you. And this is great. My name's Jason, connecting. Mm-hmm. So I try to teach them some words that will break that ice. But the key is to engage people you don't know. And that's what we tell our guides. If you don't know them, get to know them. And so that guide is critical. But now what they do is when they find a visitor and they're looking for that unfamiliar face, their job is one thing. Once you find a visitor, you then bring them to our welcome center. Now we have a spot in our lobby that has a lady behind the desk. We have our welcome cards there, where we have a small little gift. We're talking about, we've got mugs. There's different things that we can give as a visitor packet that we would give to the guests.
Okay.
We've got all our information about the churches right there. So we have that set up in our lobby. So when they first walk through our doors, we welcome. It's a big lobby, overwhelming. We get them to that visitor, fill out the visitor card. Before they get into the auditorium, we try to engage them, get their information. Because a lot of times people, they want to be a fly on a wall in church.
Absolutely.
They don't want to raise their hand. They don't want to be identified. They don't want to give information out. But you making that personal one-on-one connection, you break the ice, you kind of warm them up to you, they'll be more inclined to fill out the card. And so that guide is critical. So what the guide does is it gets the visitor information and gets them connected at the Welcome Center. And then from there, it's as if you're their personal chauffeur throughout the building. You got kids, let me help you over here. And they will leave their place and take them, so it's a personal connection throughout. Now, if you get overrun by visitors, you start maybe splitting up couples, husband, wife.
Yeah.
So, but working in and building a team, so your team could be 30 strong on a Sunday morning. depending on how many doors you have, how many guides you want, how many greeters you want. So, but this is huge. And COVID has brought a lot of people to our ministry, and where churches have shut down. And I remember this one guy, he just stopped me. He's like, Jason, I just want to tell you, you were one of the first people that you made a connection with me. And you welcomed me, you shook my hand, you showed me where I needed to go. You made it easy to come to church. And that was reassurance, not a pat on my back, but it's just like, but that's what we need. And every person needs to feel that and feel that welcome. But so often they just run in, hey, welcome, 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 and they just go and sit. And some people, that's all they want. And you can read it on their face, like, no, it's okay, and then you just show them along. Yeah. But there are people that are looking for that connection. So that's where our guide is critical. Once a guy gets in, they would get their seats, show them in the auditorium, show them the kids, show them the restrooms. Then you have your ushers that are in there, and they're part of our first impressions team. They're the ones just helping out with anything that's needed, and again, Jacket would identify them, but they might help with some seating, different things during the service. The visitor cards would be passed out and connected. And the other person that we haven't fully implemented is our section leaders. Okay. Because adult Bible class teachers are the ones that will really own the growth of an individual, is what we kind of push them to. It's like, hey, we want to make sure they're saved. So our goal is to get them to the adult Bible class.
That's long term.
That's long term, yes, sir. So this section leader is dealing with people who don't connect. They never connect to an adult Bible class teacher. Okay. So the section leaders are people who will help us attendance. Mm-hmm. And they'll be tracking people who are new. And it's another person, another connection, a friendly face. Hey, welcome, glad you're here. And the church is naturally friendly, and most churches are going to be relatively friendly to where they'll start shaking hands and connect. But these are strategic people. This is your job. This is your role. This is what we want you to do. And it's that purposeful engagement with people, and not just saying, well, we hope somebody else in their section will say hi. We don't leave it to somebody else. No, we're zeroed in to visitor. We want to make sure that they're engaged.
So there's several points of contact that we've already discussed. We've got the parking lot attendants. Now, a lot of churches don't use parking lot attendants. Is it because space is so tight at your place that you have to direct traffic a little bit, or is it not necessarily? It's maybe not necessary to do that, but at least there's a face in the parking lot to greet people.
Yes, and that was one of the things, like especially on our big days when you're having a high flow or you're expecting a lot of visitors. We like to have somebody at the, if it's raining, if it's not great weather, if it's cold, some factors. But there are strategic days for sure that we know we're going to have a crowd, we're going to have that presence. And because of our flow of our parking lot, we direct people one way so the buses can come out the other way. So that is one of the things. But to have a person there waving, sending them on their way, it is a strategic, just a smile. Okay. And it's just a friendly touch.
Yeah, so it's practical for traffic flow, but it is a human touch. Then you've got that greeter at the door, and then they will just simply, hi, how long you've been coming, like you said, and then they simply pass them, if this is their first time, then that means, hey, let's get them to a guide.
Correct.
And then the guide takes them to a section in the auditorium after visiting the Welcome Center. And then you've got a section leader who's scouting. All right, who is in my section of pews, whose face I don't recognize, and those are the people I'm going to talk to first.
So the idea is, like, the pastor's goal is, I don't want to see anybody fall through the cracks. So if you've got a faithful church attender who doesn't connect in with the adult Bible class, we call them ABCs, the adult Bible class, if they're not plugged in, they're Sunday morning only, the pastor's burden to make sure that they're growing and who's tracking them and who's checking up on them. And our attendance, which would normally be through our adult Bible classes, this is somebody who would own this section and start tracking and be able to do the attendance. Our system that we use as our database, they can be done on tablets, your phone. You can check people in and track their attendance that way. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If somebody doesn't go to Sunday school, and historically our style of churches have grown through the Sunday school ministry, and that's how we disciple people. That's how we give accountability. Hey, you've been missing 3 Sundays. Where are you? But if that person doesn't go to a Sunday school class or adult Bible study, then there is no way for us to know who they are or how often they've been coming.
Correct. Right.
So that's amazing. Now, talk a little bit about maybe some of your experiences in other ministries. Obviously, families go on vacation, they go to other churches, they experience something good, they experience something bad. And what were some surprising things that you learned decided that, hey, we need to start implementing this, or, man, that was bad. Let's not do that.
Yeah, right. And it was, I think really one of the laymen in our church that is really helping us with this first impressions, and our pastor is big on, the staff is there to help with organization, but the layman, the average person, needs to have a piece of ownership in the ministry.
Yeah.
And he wants to see their involvement. So this guy, he did some studying of it. He visited some churches, and he's been around, and he went out to a church that did a good job on paper, and he wasn't impressed with the actual being there in person.
Okay.
Which is something he just came back and he says, you know what, we can't let it go. We can't build this system, but then not affect it, not do it.
Yeah.
And and it's got to be a big deal for the people that are doing it. And sometimes we can build something good on paper and we look good, but are we actually doing it?
Yeah.
Well,
and sometimes over time things get slack.
Yeah.
People. Your church members of your team will go on vacation or they'll be gone, and who's going to fill their shoes?
Correct.
And it's something that you constantly have to hit the reset button, I imagine.
Yes.
How often do you have meetings with your team?
Right now, as we are developing it, a lot of it's going to be one-on-one communications and small connections, because we haven't rolled out every position. Like section leader is something we're building towards.
Sure, okay.
And with COVID and what has happened, a lot of people, you start finding out who's not coming back, who's coming back, but they're hit or miss or whatever. And that has been one of the biggest things. Like we recently had whatever run through the church. So it's like, there's certain people who serve, but they're pulling away because they take care of a mom. So we're always in flux about trying to make sure every gap is filled. The multiple doors, you get into, they're here and being pulled for this ministry. They're driving a bus this morning. And sometimes you get that. And the reality is you just have to be on your toes. And, the key is you have to stop and talk to people. And I'm reminded of the story of, the beggar on the side of the road. And the disciples are pushing everybody out of the way. Jesus is coming, Jesus is coming. And he's sitting there on the side of the road screaming and yelling, Jesus, Jesus. But they're pushing, hey, shut up, Jesus is coming, right?
Yeah.
Quiet. And they're pushing the one that needed, why? To serve.
Sure.
To bring Jesus to the community, but they're pushing the one that, we got to stop and deal with the ones. And sometimes it really just takes one person to be there, just make the connection. And you may not have the crowd, you may not be fully built in, but you know what, having those, and whether you have a full team or not, you have somebody there. But we do struggle with that. People are in, people are sick, kids, whatever. And the key is you shuffle around a little bit and you get people. Cross-training is a big thing. Greeters can become guides. Greeters would know enough to be able to be a guide, and sometimes that's some of what you do.
And in a pinch.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, your ushers can help and do all this stuff. So, and it's a team. That's why I say if you look at all the ushers, you look at all the greeters, you look at all the door, people just hold doors and just smile. All of these guys should be cross-trained enough to where they can jump in and fill a gap.
Yeah.
And that's how we should be doing it, just to keep somebody there.
Well, I appreciate you talking to us about this. You talked about the word system, and that's kind of a negative, connotation, when it comes to dealing with people, because people don't need to be going through a system.
Right.
They need to be meeting and greeting
Correct.
people. And so you may have a system in place,
Correct.
but
Right.
it's these people that are just the lubricant that help
Right.
everything run so smoothly. Yeah. And so I think we all could, find value in taking a step back
Right.
and realizing, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? If I was a new guy, how would I feel going to my church?
And you don't, and this is, and you made the comment, and you don't want to process people. You don't want to say, all right, here comes a visitor, check, they've been processed, you can move on. Next one, check. We're not processing people.
Yeah.
And you have this system, and you have these training, and you have these tools, but the key is you need to have a sincere person that loves and cares.
Not a robot.
Correct.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. And if you want to check out our other episodes, check out our YouTube channel and our audio-only platforms as well. And you can find other topics that will definitely help your ministry. Thanks so much for joining us.